Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is another edition of Fresh Red Kills. So this time, I don't have a bunch of massacres to talk about, not like the last few times with the when I was speaking of Japanese war crimes. Um, this past week of my reading, I was mostly focusing on my middle grade March TBR and finishing that up. So I'll get to that in a moment. Just kind of a update on the week. It was a busy week. Today on a Sunday, it's a dreary, rainy day. However, Friday and Saturday were really nice. We had a lot of backyard get-togethers with people, which was great. Especially during times of COVID, it's nice to be able to see people. And today was mostly catching up, so it's overall been a very busy weekend. But I'm managing to fit in a video or two. I'm gonna try. So this week I read The Secret Garden, all right, by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I'm not very good at saying that name for some reason. Originally published in 1911. Not her most famous novel at the time. She was much more well known in her own time for writing a Little Lord Fauntleroy, which, if you're not familiar with that, it did begin a horrible trend in dressing young boys up like little cavaliers. I'll insert an image right here so you can see what I'm talking about. But since then, since her death, this is the work of hers that has really grown in stature. I think deservedly so. I had a great time with this. Uh, I liked it more than I was even expecting to. I had read this in fifth grade. I didn't remember much about it. Uh, I only remembered that she was originally in India, that she was a brat, and I kind of remembered the character of Dickens and some stuff about the uncle. I didn't even remember the character of Colin. Uh, and one of the things I really forgot, or at least just, of course, when I was in fifth grade, I didn't recognize it, but I was surprised at how gothic the first part of this book is. It begins with a pandemic of cholera wiping out a bunch of people, and then she's traveling along the withering moors. It's rain soaked. She goes to this huge manor house. All these rooms that are locked up. It's mostly empty. She's hearing this mysterious crying at night. Uh, it seems like you're bringing this little girl, this 10-year-old girl, into a gothic setting, but of course things change. The story is really about a sort of rejuvenation, and that which you nurture will grow. So that dour gothic manor house ends up becoming a place of mirth and laughter and life. And we see people who obsess over death beginning to think about life more again. And it gets maybe a little bit saccharine at the end, but it's still a very, very well done, very well told. I enjoyed the Yorkshire accent that was that was peppered throughout here. And yeah, my son is still a little bit too young to read this. It is one that I would like to share with him in a few years when he's a little bit older. There is, of course, some colonialism in here. The central character says some very disparaging things about Indians and those were natives of India. But because it comes from the character's point of view, and this is a spoiled brat character at that point, I think it would be a valuable conversation to have with my son or eventually my daughter. She's only 4 right now, but I think eventually this is something that she'll read as well. So I'm glad I have that knowledge and insight ahead of time before they go reading this. But I think that'd be an important conversation at that point. I do have a question for people, especially who read a lot of middle grade, older classic middle grade, in how you approach colonialism or racism, when you come across those things. Of course, we had the Dr. Seuss, non-controversy that ended up being a political sticking point for a while, which kind of brings that conversation up again. But I'm just wondering because the way I'm thinking at this point, at least, is that if it comes from a character's point of view, it's easier to have that discussion with a child about it. When it comes from the author's point of view, I think it makes it much more difficult. But here, it comes from characters, so it's much more palpable, much more. It certainly makes it a document of its time, but one that's still worth checking out and observing, and diving into. So yeah, Secret Garden. Actually, I really enjoyed this one. And then I started reading just this weekend. I haven't finished it yet. This is a reread of The Man Who Was Poe by V. This, I guess, kind of fits with March Mystery Madness as well. It is a mystery, but also historical fiction, where a sort of tortured and haunted Edgar Allan Poe helps this boy try to find his kidnapped sister along the streets of Providence. I think around 1850 or so. I'll have to look into it a little more. I don't remember exactly what date it was, if it says it. Oh, 1848, it looks like. Or at least that's where the prologue is. So right around that time. And I had read this when I was young, probably around the same time as A Secret Garden, or maybe just after, maybe 6th grade. And I remember really liking this book. And I was just kind of familiar a little bit with who Edgar Allan Poe was. Reading it now, I'm picking up on a lot of the influence from this book, from Poe's horror stories at least. Although the Poe in this is the more stereotypical Poe that we got from when Poe died. His rival, whose name escapes me right now, wrote his obituary, and it was scathing and really disparaging. Kind of, I think, marked Poe as something of a drug addict and a terrible person, and that seems to be kind of the influence here. Although the point at which this story takes place in Poe's life, he was battling, I think, alcoholism and was known for some erratic behavior. Although they also make him, he's kind of a jerk, but he's a genius. He's a tortured genius in this. But you can see the allusions to his stories peppered in here. What isn't in here, as far as Poe goes, is his non-horror stories. What I mean by that is there's a whole other side to Poe, if you've read all of his stuff, that's very playful, it's very humorous, it's funny sometimes, and you don't get that sense at all from this. This is a person who seems as haunted as one of his characters inside one of his horror stories. But I'm liking it so far, and I have vague memories of the first half being better than the second half, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know, of course, in the next installment. But, that's where I'm going now. I still have to read, I'll do that this week as well, Peter Pan. That's my last of my, almost my last of the middle grade March TBR. Also reading Matilda with my son, which we're almost done with. And when we finish that, I'll give my thoughts on that as well. And yeah, I think once I'm done with that, I'll maybe dive into some adult horror fiction. And leave some of the middle grade stuff behind. But I'm having fun reading the middle grade stuff. I'm glad that I am. Not only because my son is at that age, but also I teach 7th grade, and some of them are still reading the middle grade stuff, or they've just moved on from that. So it helps to keep me into better perspective of the things that maybe they're coming away from before they get to me. So yeah, all right, that's this edition of Fresh Red Kills, and see you next time. Thank you, BookTube.